Now, you've been hearing people talking about budget, 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 but you find yourself in a problem that you don't even know how to create a budget that really works. And when I say a budget that really works, is a budget that works for you. Please stop copying each other. The budget, my budget is not your budget. My priorities is not your priorities. Are we together? Today, I'm going to teach you how to create a budget that really works and serves you. And perhaps you may be wondering, you're like, okay, what if I don't even create a budget and I operate free gear? Now, let me give you a very small secret. Budget is actually a money tracker. Budget is the one that helps you to see how you're spending your money. By the way, have you ever been in a situation whereby you usually ask yourself, oh my goodness, I had like 20,000 like a week ago. I don't have any right now. What's going on? And then you take yourself a pen and paper, you sit down, you're trying to track where has the money gone. Listen, do you know why this is happening? It's happening because you don't even have a track record of where your money is going. And the budget helps you to dedicate that money where it's appropriate to serve your priorities. Okay, let me not make a very long introduction, but I cannot go without telling you this. Make sure that you subscribe. And why on earth do I even tell you to subscribe? Okay, because you can, by the way, you can choose to watch this video without subscribing or liking the video. Why do I tell you to do those two things? One, when you subscribe, you'll be notified whenever Good Joseph, that's me, when I upload a new good video, because I do that each and every day. And when you like this video, guess what? You are making, it's like telling me thank you, because I can't even hear you when you say thank you. You're just telling me thank you, I like that video. Then go ahead and do so. And there is a comment section whereby you have the right to put your comment out there, ask me a question, and I usually make videos based on the comments that I may be able to answer you there for the benefit of everyone. And that's the end of the introduction. For those people, please avoid many words. Okay, fine, thank you. Now, how do you create a working budget? Now, see, you have to first of all understand that the budget helps you to track your money. And it tracks your money in two ways, okay? It tracks your money in terms of the inflows. That money comes in, it tracks that. By the way, it's quite amazing that everyone knows how much comes in, but most of the people have a problem of the tracking of what is getting out. So it helps you to actually track your inflows and also outflows. Outflows is a thing that takes money out of your pocket, and the inflows are the things or how you get or how much you get into your pocket. Okay, you might be employed, you have a business, or however you get your money, provided I hope you're not stealing. Now, the point number one that you're supposed to understand when it comes to creating a working budget is that there are four things that you have to understand when it comes to you spending your money. One, we have what we call the fixed expenses. These are the things that you already know how much they will cost you at the end of the month, okay? You already know how much you pay for your, say, insurance if you're paying for the health insurance. You already know how much you pay for your rent if you're paying any. You know how much you pay for your mortgage if you're paying any. You know how much you usually pay for your subscriptions. Let's say you have subscribed to, say, Netflix or whatever the thing it is. You already know it is 2,000, it is 100, it is 250, it is 100. You already know that's a fixed expense. You already know at the end of the month 1,500 belongs to Netflix. That's what you have to pay them. You also know at the end of the month I pay 30,000 for my rent. You already know, or 10,000. Okay, you already know that I have to pay 1,500 for my mortgage. You already know that I have to pay. It's a fixed expenses. You cannot negotiate with it. Are we together? Those are fixed expenses. And mostly those are the things that they're usually given the priorities the moment you get your cash. Although there are some cases whereby we say you invest and save before you do other things. But I'm going to clarify that as we move forward. Now, the other thing that you actually capture in your budget is the variable expenses. These are the things that change with time. The money is not fixed. The way you did your groceries last month or last year, it's not the same that you're going to do your groceries. It's not how much you're going to buy for your wheat flour, the maize flour. It's not how much you're going to pay for your peanut butter. It's not how much you're going to... They keep on changing. Although they don't vary with a big difference, but they keep on changing time to time. How much you actually spend for your entertainment last time. Maybe the fueling, the gas. You know, people in America call it gas. Here in Kenya, we call it petrol, or we call it whatever that thing we put in our cars for it to go. Okay, see, now the thing is, it keep on changing, but at least you already know there is a boundary of how much it can actually not go beyond. Are we together? Those are called variables. So when you're planning for your budget, make sure that at least you give yourself a little bit of an allowance, yeah, so that in case things have gone overboard a little bit, you can actually be able to capture that. Okay, now the other thing that you also have to capture in that particular budget is your savings or your investment. But before we go to that, let's just talk about a little bit about debts. See, when we talk about debts and loans repayment, okay, this is the things that you have actually taken a loan. Let's say maybe you're doing some real estate investment. Let's say maybe you took a loan for for other developmental purposes. I'm really hoping and crossing my fingers that you didn't take that loan to fund the consumables, or you didn't take that loan to buy a car that is not necessarily putting any money in your pocket. You just want to look good moving from point A to point B, and you have yourself a crazy car payment each and every month. I hope you're not doing that, okay? And if you're doing that, can you get me, let's have a talk at the back of our tent, so that at least we can be able to see where we actually have a problem. But anyway, you have to also to capture the debt payment. Sometimes people do prioritize debts. For example, let's say you have a, what do you call them? The student debt. Let's say maybe you went to university and you studied the debt. Let's say maybe you build your home with a debt or something of sort. Like whatever the debt that you have or a loan that you have, make sure that you have ways on how to pay that amount of money. Remember, all that is not your money. The fixed expenses, those are not your that is not your money. Things to do with your debts and loan repayments and what have you, again, that is not your money. The variable expenses, again, that is not your money. Now, your money comes in when you speak the language of savings and investments. But don't forget, it's always good to fund that basket called the emergency fund, especially if you are normal living human beings. You know one thing about life, the most predictable thing about life is its unpredictability. It's always good to set that money aside so that you can have what we call the soft landing, just in case a BS happens. Are we together? See, now, the only time you pay yourself is when you actually speak the language of investments and savings. You remember most of you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go for that nice dining. I'm going to go for that nice entertainment because I just want to pay myself. I just want to be happy. You're not paying yourself. You're paying the owner of that particular cafe. You're paying the owner of that particular fashion shop where you're buying that particular dress or a clothes that you love most. So you're not paying yourself. You want to buy that nice car. Nah, you're not paying you. You're paying the car dealership and you're paying the company where you're buying that particular item. But now when you talk about the savings and investments, this is where now you've actually given yourself a priority. And this is where that I personally, as Joseph, I usually consider first. Listen, I don't want to speak the language of rent and what have you before I invest. I have to invest first because I am the priority in this. Why? Because I'm the biggest asset in my cash flow generation. I am the biggest asset. And of course, you give priority that what makes you money. You pay yourself first. Are we together? This is where now you channel that money towards an investment. Let's spend a little bit of time there. So how much should go there? You have ever heard of people talking about a certain rule? I don't know, 10, 65, 25. You have heard about people talking about 50, 20, 30 rule. Whatever the rule is, some people talk about 75, 25. Listen, forget about those rules, okay? They are nice, they are okay, they work to some people, might not work for you. You might be in a situation whereby, for God's sake, you cannot be able to save 20% of your cash each and every month based on what you have as responsibilities. And check out on the responsibilities. Are they shakables? Can you shake them off? And I'm going to give you a very simple example. I have two people here. One, of course, they are married and they have a children, and of course, the other one actually married and have the children. Let's say they have two children, they have two children. Both of them, they have like equal family in terms of the number of people. And then you find one person has actually come from a family whereby the guy is actually dependent or is dependent. So people depend upon him or her to actually cater for their school fees and everything and what have you. So you find that person has a lot of baggage on top of his or her head to actually cater for those bills. This guy comes from quite of a good family, or comes from a family where it's not well up, but there's a family that is understanding. They're like, you know what, let that guy be. And then you find there's not a lot of money that is actually flowing towards or back to where he or she came from. So you cannot compare these two individuals. Now, what happens? I had a person who actually was, paying school fees and taking care of his siblings, because they are orphans. So in that kind of a situation, situation, even if you speak the language of avoiding black tax, that guy cannot be able to do that. So the point is, fix or work towards that what really works for you. You know, you find like, hey, you know what, Joseph, well, people do say that I can save 20%, but I can manage to save 40%. Go ahead and do that. Can be able to save 60%. Again, what you save and invest and set aside for your development is determined by the goal that you have. Let's say you have 3 years to achieve 2 million and you want, say, 300,000 or 200,000, you have to save more. If you have less of the time, you have to save more. If you have more of the time, you can leverage on time and save a little bit so that you can achieve that. So it depends. So this issue of saying, hey, take 20% be savings, at times may not really work because you find people have different visions. Again, if you have a bigger dream, or again, when I say bigger, that's relative, depends with you, because your bigger dream might not be big to me, or my big dream might not be big to you. So the point is, always do that work for you. But there is a caveat. Do not just try to take advantage of that and be saving 5% because Joseph said save according to your own wish and will. No, please make sure that whatever you are saving, you can truly justify that, and you make sure that you're operating on optimum because you are not spending some cash on irrelevant things. So the moment you work in that way, you're gonna do something great. Now, let's go ahead and set something called priorities right. Make sure that you set your priorities right. Remember, there's something called the hierarchy of priorities. There are things that you can give them priorities. There are others that you can sort of kind of disregard them and let them wait a little bit as you fix others. So when you're in a situation whereby you are actually doing the budgeting, make sure that you set your priorities right. What matters to you? Separate your needs and the wants and what have you. Why? Because when you mix the needs and the wants at the same time or in the same basket, you might actually pick the want and want and want, and then you're leaving your needs on that particular basket. And maybe, probably, the needs are the one that gonna set you financially free. The other thing that you're supposed to do, which is quite essential when you're actually setting your budget, is to make sure that you set the spending limit. Have you ever been on a highway where you find there is a very heavy traffic and there is always a guardrail that separates the oncoming cars and the, you get what I'm saying? So there is that guardrail that helps. Not that you can't drive, not that you can't really take care of the car that is coming from the other side, but the guardrails is there just in case something happens. You can hit the guardrail. By the way, I was watching a video on the TikTok and I saw you see this bundle of a truck, these two, how can I say them, these two wheels, yeah, that are bundled together. They actually got out of the truck and the wheels were just rolling on the roads and what have you, and you can see it was actually hitting the guardrails coming back. If there were no guardrails, it could actually hit the oncoming traffic, and that way it helps you, or it tells you this guardrail is very, very essential. Well, I know that's a weird example, but what I'm talking about is make sure that at least you have the guardrails, which is your spending limits. And for me, I usually have it like subconsciously. I can actually tell you, I have not done the actual budgeting or sort of like tracking what I've spent, but I can tell you today I'm actually overboard. I can actually feel like, you know what? Yeah, today I'm still within the limit. Today I'm actually off. So it's always good to make sure that if you do not have the capacity to have that guardrail subconsciously, then you can literally have it where you actually, nowadays we have a lot of apps that you can have it in your phone. I don't want to say any, but you have a lot of apps that can help you to budget or maybe track your spendings. You have the spend limits. Excuse me, maybe let's say you've said that, hey, I ain't gonna spend more than 2,000, say, on an entertainment, say, in a week. Then the moment you go overboard, then you know what? It tells you, hey, you know what? You've actually gone overboard. You've actually spent more than 2,000, as you said, purposely for what? For your entertainment. So it's always good to make sure that you have that spending limit so that it can function as a guardrail. It helps you on this side, help this side, so that at least you can be able to move in a right manner. Another thing is that it's always good to review and amend your budget each and every month. Okay, well, it doesn't have to be necessarily a month. You can amend or review every month. You can amend or review each and every quarterly, semi-annually, or not really annually. Come on, do so after 3 months. Check it out, because things changes. Inflation is there. Prices are changing crazily, not only in Kenya, not only in Africa, globally. Prices are changing, so it's all good. Make sure that you do what you do, your reviews. If the government can actually and usually do the reviews about the money we spend and financial things and what have you, then why shouldn't you do that? Go ahead and do the reviews. And by the way, if you're married, you have a family, I always encourage that you sit down with your spouses, and sometimes even if it's after 3 months, have a money discussion. It's always good to have a money discussion in whichever formalities that you guys gonna have it. But for God's sake, talk about money. Talk about it. And if there are kids around, of course, when you're talking not things about that are quite sensitive, you can bring them on board and you show them how you talk about the money, how you budget about the money, how you go about. See, because these things are not provided in school. And I tend to think like it's like deliberately. They do that deliberately. The last thing, celebrate your progress. Absolutely. If you had set a budget for the last month and you've actually successfully handled that, you can actually celebrate that. And celebrate that does not mean now you go break your coffers and you start drinking and saying, hey, I'm celebrating what I achieved. Come on. You can neutralize everything within a single sitting. That's good Joseph speaking. And I talk about money. And that's the end. If you need any services from me, you can always grab that number from the description of this particular video. Shoot me a call or text or an email. We can talk the business. For now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.